Hey everyone, so if you've been a big One Piece fan for some time and you live in a country that's outside of Asia, I'm sure that you've realized that the average person has no idea what One Piece is. And not just like in a vague way where they kind of know it, like, oh, is it that show with the pirates? More like people literally don't know that a series called One Piece exists. And that is absolutely insane to think about, considering One Piece is by far the most popular manga of all time. It is the third and soon to be second best-selling comic series, period, ever, across all nations. And Oda is one of the best-selling authors in history, in general. Yet, in a country like the United States, One Piece is practically unheard of. Now, some of you may be getting ready to argue with me over this, and you're going to pull up some sales figures to show why, One Piece does actually get decent sales in certain Western countries. You might start talking about how One Piece was actually part of the big three with Naruto and Bleach. And look, that's fine. I'm not literally saying One Piece isn't read by anyone outside of Japan. Obviously that's not the case, or my videos would get 0 views. I'm saying that relative to what One Piece seems like it should be internationally, relative to the status it holds in Japan, and most importantly, relative to how less popular anime and manga in Japan have done in the West compared to One Piece, yes, by those standards, One Piece is a flop. Like, if you've pretty much outstripped all other manga competitors to the point that your competition is now only Superman and Batman, then yeah, not being a household name in the West is pretty crazy. Considering One Piece was really just the Jack of the big three in the West, whereas it was the undisputed king in Japan, yes, One Piece was a flop in the West. Because look, even if someone doesn't know the details of Dragon Ball Z, like they don't know exactly what goes on in that series, they've never seen it themselves, most everyone from my generation knows of Dragon Ball Z. Like, most everyone of my generation knows of Naruto, even if they don't personally watch it. I get the sense that even My Hero may be starting to approach a similar status in terms of name recognition, though I'm obviously not a school kid anymore, so I can't really speak from personal experience on My Hero. But there's just a certain level of popularity and name recognition that One Piece has not hit in the West, despite being around for so long. Now, lots of One Piece fans tend to get defensive over this and basically wave all this away by saying, it's because of 4Kids. One Piece could have been just as big as Naruto, but 4Kids ruined it. If you don't know, by the way, the original English dub of One Piece was done by 4Kids, who heavily censored the series and had goofier voice acting. But let's get this out of the way right now. No, 4Kids was not the reason One Piece failed in the West. That's something I hear over and over, to the point that I think, like, once people just started saying it a little bit, like pretty much all One Piece fans just kind of accepted it as a fact and didn't bother to think any further as to why the series actually failed in the West. 4Kids is unfortunately the scapegoat for One Piece's lack of success overseas, but at best I'd say 4Kids played maybe a 5-10% role in One Piece not doing well. The real reasons One Piece did not do well overseas go a lot deeper than that, and it requires an examination of what it takes for a series from Japan to succeed in America, and why One Piece may have simply been doomed from the start, no matter what the dub was like. And lastly, we're going to talk about whether or not One Piece has a chance at turning things around. Is there a chance at real success internationally? Is there a chance for this series to turn into a household name, despite decades of being overshadowed by other famous anime? So, to start with, before looking at the reasons One Piece is actually written in a way that makes it very difficult to succeed internationally, let's talk about what factors actually prime a series for success in the West. In general, I'm going to be talking about anime here, because even though we all read manga, the reality is that manga alone is never a path to widespread popularity. It's the TV shows that get big. There's just a bigger audience for TV. So, really what we should start by looking at is Western TV, specifically Western cartoons that are aimed at kids. So Western cartoons are not like anime, in that for the most part, they are very, very light on long-running storylines. That's not to say that they don't have long-running storylines and plot points that carry over from different episodes. It's just that most of them are designed such that a kid can turn on a new episode on Saturday morning and know what's going on without having necessarily seen the previous episode or episodes. The storytelling is mainly episodic. Some series differ, of course, like Avatar: The Last Airbender, but that's an important point in that this show is sort of the exception that proves the rule. Kids from my generation remember Avatar so well because of how different it was from other Western cartoons. This was an actual long-running, continuous story that was building a larger, significant narrative as it went along. And guess what? Even Avatar is extremely episodic compared to the standard anime, especially in when it was getting started. with all of Season 1 being very self-contained stories that you could just drop into and watch at random. Since Avatar, there have been shows like Young Justice, which was a little after my time, but which I've also heard was a little stronger on the overarching narratives. But at the end of the day, none of this stuff is like your standard shonen anime, where it's all arc-based storytelling, continuous narratives where the episodes are always flowing into the next episode, with cliffhangers at the end of pretty much every episode. However, let's look at the 3 most popular anime of all time in the West and see what they have in common. So Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Dragon Ball. Lots of people think Dragon Ball was the most popular anime in the West, but really it's not. It's easily Pokemon. Pokemon is really just so ingrained into Western culture that people don't even think of it as an anime anymore. It's surpassed that cultural barrier. But a big reason Pokemon was so successful was because it is episodic. Yes, it had the games which were wildly popular and stuff, but I personally never played Pokemon when I was a kid, and plenty of my friends didn't play Pokemon either, but we all watched the show because Pokemon is just such a great watch for kids. New episode, new little storyline every time. You can miss plenty of episodes and drop in whenever, and maybe some plot progressions have happened, but nothing that affects your enjoyment of the current episode. And guess what? Yu-Gi-Oh! Was a lot like that too. Yes, there was a plot. There was, the Battle City tournament and everything like that, and actually there were lots of cliffhangers, and the duels would often take multiple episodes, but you could miss plenty of episodes and drop in on a new duel, and it wouldn't really matter. The plot was just really an excuse to get to the next duel, so it's easy for kids to miss out on segments of the overarching plot and still enjoy the show. And lastly, that applies to Dragon Ball as well. Let me preface this with a little tangent by saying I think Dragon Ball hate is kind of stupid because people are using the standards of manga storytelling today to try and attack a series that comes from a much simpler era. Like if 20 years from now, newspaper comics suddenly became extremely deep, complex works of fiction, then that doesn't mean you should go back and make fun of Calvin and Hobbes for being simpler. Like that just makes you the ignorant one because you don't understand context. However, all that being said, the fact is that Dragon Ball is a lot like Yu-Gi-Oh! Where the plot doesn't matter that much. The fights are the main showcase, they're the main attraction, and the narrative is mainly to move things along to get to the next fight, the next tournament, etc. Meaning, with Dragon Ball, you can tune in to pretty much whenever and get to watch a cool fight. If you miss a few episodes, it doesn't matter because when you tune in the next time, you'll be tuning into an even bigger fight with an even stronger opponent. So, the bottom line is, One Piece, right off the bat, could never have been a cultural phenomenon the way Pokemon or Dragon Ball are, because the secrets to success for those shows in the West is they're episodic. Their plots are simple enough to succeed. However, even if One Piece can't hit that tier of popularity, there is a next tier of popularity below that One Piece hypothetically could have and should have hit. And this is the tier what you would reasonably expect based on One Piece's competitors. I'm talking about shows like Naruto, My Hero, even Bleach. From what I've observed, Attack on Titan probably belongs in this group as well nowadays, though, again, I'm not in school, I don't know what the kids watch these days. This is just my understanding of how big Attack on Titan's gotten internationally. Basically, this is the tier where even though it's not mainstream in the West to watch these type of shows, I think a good number of people would at least recognize the names or vaguely recognize the series if they saw some, some cosplay or merchandise or posters or whatever, right? Now, all these series, Naruto, Bleach, My Hero, Attack on Titan, etc., throw in whatever you know of, they're much more plot-based than something like Pokemon, right? They, like One Piece, require greater investment in the story. You need to be following along more. These are the series that are also generally what get people into anime in general, since once you're invested enough to start keeping up with Naruto episodes, you probably ultimately go online to watch more, and then you're introduced to other series, and so on. Pokemon, or even Dragon Ball alone, they aren't going to do that, and there are a lot of people who really, they're really into Dragon Ball and nothing else, and also aren't interested in trying any other anime. However, One Piece, it kind of falls short of ranking even with the series in this sort of tier. Why is that? What makes something like Naruto popular with kids and teenagers in the West, while One Piece isn't on their radar? Well, it's 4 main factors. And 4Kids only plays a bit of a part in one of them. Really, One Piece was doomed to fall short of all these other series, simply based on the way the story was written from the start. Now, the first reason is maybe the most speculative, but I think there's validity to it. One Piece's general concept for a story, the setting it takes place in, which is pirates sailing around the ocean, is not a really powerful hook for Western audiences. Consider something like Attack on Titan. It's It's a world where humanity has no idea what is beyond the walls they live in, other than giant humanoid monsters that seem to exist only to eat you. You could watch one episode of Attack on Titan and immediately be hooked just by the concept. I think Attack on Titan has one of the best conceptual hooks of any series ever. But then also stuff like, Bleach's Hollows, or the idea of My Hero's Academy for Superheroes. These are at least concepts that can, pique a kid or a teenager's interest. Even if we just look at something simpler like Naruto, I think that, people have a fascination with the idea of ninjas. Even One Piece characters themselves acknowledge this fascination with ninjas. And if you're a kid in a Western country, then a story about ninjas seems different and fresh. A story about pirates sailing and searching for treasure, it's just not a very standout concept on its own. At least it didn't feel that way to me when I was a kid in the US and I first saw an advertisement for One Piece on TV, especially when the pirates didn't even really seem like pirates. Now, the real concept of it for the story of One Piece is obviously much, much more complex. It's so much more than just pirates searching for a treasure, but the problem is that it takes a long, long time for the story to build its overarching narrative. And that's the second big reason that One Piece failed in the West. The fact is that One Piece has a ridiculously slow start by the standards of any series, Western or Japanese, right? The first chapter of Bleach is exciting. The first arc of Naruto is one of its best. You could show someone a single image from Attack on Titan's first episode, and they would be hooked. Whereas with One Piece, I think the first truly interesting thing to happen is when Mihawk shows up, dozens of episodes into the story. East Blue in general is very, very basic storytelling with very basic fights. I love East Blue largely because of the nostalgia and being able to reread and appreciate what I missed the first time. But to someone new, no, East Blue, it's not a strong or fast start to the story. And this is of course intentional because One Piece is just built different. Oda was thinking very long term from the start. The entire 100-chapter saga of East Blue was just the prologue of the story to him. That's made pretty clear at Logtown, prologue, Logtown, literally the town of beginning and end. And the story really officially starts at chapter 100. That's all kind of spelled out for us. So One Piece has a stupidly slow start, but it's an intentionally slow start, but it's still a slow start. That is a death sentence for a foreign series trying to succeed in the West. Yes, One Piece's greatest strength is arguably its overarching narrative. There's not a single manga that comes close to the scale of One Piece's story is shaping up to be. But what is arguably its greatest strength as a story is its biggest weakness overseas. The difference is that in Japan, the culture is already in place to read and follow along with manga week to week. You expect long-running storylines that will grow. In a country like the US, where most shows are episodic, a foreign show would need to grab someone's attention early and be interesting enough that you start getting invested and maybe want to start following it online. For One Piece, the entire first few seasons could be on TV without anyone really getting invested or pulled in. And this would all be fine if the action was good, but it's not. And this is the next big reason that One Piece was doomed to fail in the West. The biggest thing by far that an anime has over any TV cartoon in the West is the action. There is nothing that Western cartoons have that comes even close to the intensity and the length of anime fights. Like, I really liked the show Teen Titans. It was cool, the action scenes were fun. But comparing that to something like an action scene out of Bleach, something out of Dragon Ball Z, there's no way to describe the gap. Like, the action is honestly speaking the biggest difference maker between what makes an anime grab a Western kid's attention over all the other Western cartoons competing for their attention on TV. And here's where I'm going to reveal something. The same was true for me with One Piece. I got hooked through the 4Kids dub, actually, because all I had to see was one fight. Do you realize how crazy it is as a kid to watch a show like Teen Titans, where you get a fun little episode with a quick 2-minute fight at the end, and then go from that to seeing a show that spends literally an entire episode on one single fight and then ends on a cliffhanger, with us not even sure if the protagonist wins or not? The intensity and suspense of an anime fight just blows Western cartoons out of the water. But here's the thing. Why do I say the action was One Piece's weak point if that's what got me hooked? Because it doesn't matter that One Piece's action is better than all Western cartoons. What matters is that One Piece's action is worse than pretty much every other anime that might be airing in the West as well. One Piece got me hooked through sheer chance. If I had watched, like, say, the Zabuza fight from Naruto first, then I would have been a Naruto fan. The way things happened to play out, 3 separate times I turned on the television and just so happened to see One Piece episodes and just so happened to see specifically the Buggy fight, the Kuro fight, and the Krieg fight. And each time the show got me more and more excited because it was just so different from Western cartoons, and I had not happened to have seen Naruto or Bleach at that point. Because by comparison, One Piece's action for a long time is way worse than Naruto and Bleach's, like way worse. It feels slow, it feels much less flashy. That's true of the manga and the anime. Reading One Piece's manga fights, it feels like the anime pretty accurately reflects them. They just aren't that fast or flashy. I think it takes till Enies Lobby before you start seeing some more really cool stuff, like the really flashy anime stuff in One Piece's fights. So, taking everything I've said so far into account, consider where we're at this point in terms of why One Piece failed in the West. First, One Piece's concept isn't immediately appealing. Pirates looking for treasure. No kid who sees an ad for that on TV is going to view that as a must-watch show the next day. Not like a cool show about ninjas or a superhero academy. Second, One Piece has a stupidly slow start. It's going to be on for multiple seasons before you start getting to really juicy stuff and cool characters and villains that these other anime are going to have right off the bat. Even if you accidentally tune in to watch an episode from East Blue or early Grand Line, there's just not much to grab you right away, and you don't really get that there's a bigger plot that's building here. And lastly, let's say you have, through random chance, come across an episode of One Piece specifically during a fight scene, like I did. Maybe it's Luffy versus Don Krieg. Now, if you've seen literally any other anime on TV, if you've seen any Naruto fight, any Dragon Ball fight, any Bleach fight, you can instantly see that the One Piece fight is worse. You can instantly feel that this show is not as cool as the others. So already, all of that combined, that's really narrowing down One Piece's chances of a kid or a teenager giving the series a real try. Just on so many levels, it's beaten out by these other series that are just positioned to get the attention of a foreign audience much better. Notice how none of what I said has anything to do with 4 kids. It's all just the way the story of One Piece is written itself. Now, lastly, the final reason, there is one more reason, and I think that 4 kids can partially be blamed for, which is that One Piece simply does not seem mature at the surface level. It is a much brighter, goofier, more cartoonish looking series than most other anime, shonen or not shonen. And if you ask me what the most attractive aspect of anime is to a kid, besides the action, it's the fact that these series just seem way more adult than the Western cartoons they're getting. There's death, there's violence, there's blood, it's much more intense, it's much more suspenseful. It just feels like this is a much darker series that you're getting than the other stuff on TV. And One Piece does not give off that vibe in the slightest. One Piece, of course, has a lot of serious stuff in it. It has death, blood, violence, and heavy themes, but it doesn't try to appear like that on the surface. It's the classic case of more than meets the eye, don't judge a book by its cover, etc. But that's not going to work when your target audience is, Western kids who aren't really familiar with your genre, with short attention spans who are going to be going off first impressions. Especially when we're talking about, teenagers instead of kids. Because, let's say aside from stuff like Naruto and My Hero, it's really teens who are going to get into something like Bleach or Attack on Titan. And maybe that's even when they've tried another anime and then they're choosing the next one to get into, and naturally they're going to trend towards something that seems darker, something like a Bleach or an Attack on Titan, something more serious, something that fits that angsty phase of your life when you're growing up. One Piece just doesn't seem like a choice anyone would go for. It was part of the big 3, but it was by far the smallest of the big 3, and I would bet that most people only got to One Piece after trying the others, because why would One Piece be the next series you try when it seems so kiddie and immature? And this is where I say that yes, in the smallest sense, 4 kids may have played a part in this. Really, it's the bright colors and the goofy looking characters that are just a staple of One Piece in general, but sure, maybe seeing a character sucking on a lollipop could have added to the sense that this was just a more childish show. So, after saying all that, I guess I've probably ruined your day and made it sound like your favorite series will never be popular in the country that you live in. Not necessarily, because One Piece now has a chance at a do-over. One really big opportunity that could make it bigger than any of the other series I've mentioned. This is the ultimate second chance. I'm talking about the live-action series coming to Netflix. Now, look, I'm not trying to get people's hopes up. I'm not trying to argue that this is going to change everything, or that this series is going to be a guaranteed success, or that it's even going to gain any traction. However, I'm saying that this is One Piece's only chance. This series isn't magically going to become more popular in the West after decades of going under the radar. Wano could end up as a 10 out of 10 arc, and that's not going to make a big change on One Piece's, popularity internationally. Kids generally just don't watch this anime. Teenagers who are getting into anime don't generally have One Piece at the top of their list of things to try. The live action is the only shot we've got. Because the power of a good live action series just cannot be underestimated, right? Because that's how obscure comments like The Walking Dead and The Boys became household names. That's how fantasy series that no one reads, like Game of Thrones, became international cultural phenomenons. Anything can happen with a live action because once it's up, the source material and the popularity of the source material don't matter. The live action TV show can grow so far beyond that. If the show is even moderately successful, then people who have never heard of One Piece are going to at least start to have that name recognition. And a lot of people who would never have tried it may decide to give the anime or manga a shot. And if the series is good, oh man, I'm not even going to talk about that because it's just very rare for a series to become, as big as a Game of Thrones. Those are once in a decade type things, but obviously it's nice to think about, the small possibility is there. I will say that being on Netflix alone is a really good starting point, the best starting point you could ask for. That's pretty much the absolute ideal platform for a show to be on to get fresh eyes on it. And it sounds like there is a very, very big budget behind this show. Not to mention Oda personally is providing significant input, and the writer Matt Owens seems like a good guy who's very passionate about the project. So Matt, a lot's riding on you if you're watching this. You're literally the only hope we have of One Piece becoming popular in the West. So, can One Piece be popular in the West? Yes. More than My Hero, more than Naruto, even more than Dragon Ball. But as it is, it's all riding on this one show, because the anime can never succeed in the West because of all the reasons I listed above. Simply it just comes down to the way the story is structured. However, despite all that, I will say that I don't care. I'm happy the story of One Piece is the way it is. Even if it's unfortunate it doesn't lend itself to quickly grabbing the attention of Westerners, I'm happy the series seems bright and childish on the surface. I'm happy Oda takes his time letting the story slowly build up. I don't mind that the fights aren't the best ever, and I love the concepts of pirates going on a grand adventure. So that's all for this video. If you enjoyed, then definitely like, comment, and subscribe, and you can support me on Patreon for extended thoughts on this and all future topics.